Hello friends, you're on the Military with Summary channel. In this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Russia. During the previous 12 hours, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation made lots of very interesting statements, so let's discuss them in details. The Russians are saying that Vladimir Zelensky's statements to journalists that the Ukrainian armed forces are allegedly cleansing the remaining up to 60 Russians in Kupiansk can only indicate two things. The head of the Kiev regime has completely lost touch with reality, and listening to Syrsky's report is completely unaware of the operational situation on the ground. Or on the contrary, he understands the hopelessness of the situation and the real position of the Ukrainian armed forces in Kupiansk. So as we can see, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation commented the statements that were made by Zelensky yesterday, so which means that if the Russians are telling this, most likely in coming days, lots of interesting details and updates will be revealed by the Russian side from the territory of the city of Kupiansk and the city of Pokrovsk, because the Russians are confident, as we can see in what they are saying. Furthermore, we got report that Putin has signed a law allowing the collapse of reservists to protect Russia's critical infrastructure. The General Staff emphasized that this is not a mobilization, nothing that reservists are distinct from contract soldiers. They will serve only in their home regions and will not be sent to the front. So the Russians are going to improve their air defense forces. I would like to remind you that the Russians decided to, to adopt this law with the purpose to protect the objects of their critical infrastructure. We're talking about oil refineries, power plants, and so on. And now the Russians are going to mobilize up to 100,000 soldiers who will do these things. Now let's go to Ukraine and let's discuss the situation on the ground. And first let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction. During the previous 12 hours, according to different mappers, the Russians managed to improve their positions on the territory of the settlement by the name of Primorska. So this is the situation by the end of the 4th of November of 2025. Just yesterday we received this video, how Ukrainians managed to secure the former Kakhovka water reservoir. Here we can see how special forces of Ukraine were establishing their flag on the island, on the former island of this area. Based on this video, yesterday we adjusted this territory, but today several pro-Russian sources reported that Russians during the previous 24 hours managed to improve their position significantly. The Russians captured lots of territories. Currently Russians control the southern and the central parts of the settlement of Primorska, and as soon as the Russians managed to improve their positions this way, they established complete FPV drone control over the main supply lines that go in the direction of the settlement by the name of Stepnogorsk. So the Russians are about to cut this territory from the logistic, and then they will continue offensive with the purpose to establish complete control over the territory. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Pokrovsk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes and interesting details were discovered. First of all, we have changes on the ground, and let's discuss them in details. And this is the first video. And here we can see how Russians were freely moving in the most northern part of the settlement of Pokrovsk, how Ukrainians were attacking and bombing them. So there are lots of episodes during this video, and one of the episodes was geolocated exactly at this point. So based on this video, we came to the conclusion that Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to get the river of Gryshenka. So the Russians basically managed to get the city limits and the city border of the city of Pokrovsk in its northern part. Furthermore, several pro-Russian sources reported that as a result of clashes, the armed forces of the Russian Federation managed to improve their positions significantly in the northwestern direction and to improve their positions along O525 road. So this is the situation by the end of the 4th of November of 2025, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 5th of November. Furthermore, a lot of pro-Russian sources expanded the gray zone in this area, and currently everything between this red line and, let's say, contested area according to our map is already a gray zone. So this is the situation in this area, which means that currently there are very heavy clashes, and most likely some Russian soldiers or some Russian groups were already discovered in this area. Furthermore, we continue receiving updates from the territory of the last Ukrainian citadel in the northeastern part. Today we received additional video of the situation on the ground, and here we can see the moment when Ukrainian soldier surrendered. So here we can see the gas station. We discussed this gas station yesterday, and here we can see several Russian soldiers that left the gas station and began moving in the direction of the northeastern citadel. So these are the Russian soldiers, and they moved in this direction with one purpose, to capture Ukrainian soldier who decided to surrender. So this is a Ukrainian soldier who surrendered, and these are Russian soldiers that captured him. So this video confirms that Ukrainians are still on the territory of the northeastern citadel, but from the other side, this video confirms that Ukrainians began surrendering from this area, which means that most likely in coming 24-48 hours, this territory would be captured completely, and lots of Ukrainian soldiers can surrender or could surrender. At the same time, the Ukrainians continue their counterattacks in the area of the settlement of Rodinska. The Ukrainians are moving along the railways, and the Russians are bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of Ukraine with the purpose to slow down Ukrainians and not to allow them to concentrate units before beginning of another counteroffensive operation. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine along the railways. The Ukrainians, from their side, are bombing and attacking positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, the territory of mines in the area of the settlement of Rodinska. Here we can see how Ukrainians bombed positions of the armed forces of the Russian Federation. They were trying to destroy positions of FPV drone operators. So as you can see, these two videos confirm that there are still very heavy clashes in this area, and that Ukrainians still continue their counterattacks with the purpose to restore complete control over the territory. Furthermore, the Russians continue their counteroffensive operation. I'd like to remind you that Zelensky stated several days ago that the Russians are concentrating units, and most likely the Russians are about to begin their counter-offensive operation in the Dobropolye direction. In this video, we can see how Russians were bombing positions of the armed forces of Ukraine with aviation. Now let's discuss the situation in the northern directions. During the previous 12 hours, we received additional changes on the ground in the area of the settlement by the name of Volchansk. The Russians are about to finish the battle for this territory. This bridgehead was cut by Russians into several parts. The Russians managed to clear the western part of the city of Volchansk. Now the Russians are tasked to finish the battle for the eastern part of the settlement. According to several mappers, the Russians during the previous 24 hours improved their position, and now they're trying to advance from the western part of the city of Volchansk in the direction of the central, and most likely then they will continue advancing further in the direction of eastern. We believe that in coming days the city of Volchansk would be secured by Russians completely, and the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation will confirm this information. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.